John Hodian of the Naghash Ensemble. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Where does the Naghash Ensemble unique spirit come from, and how does it reflect on you as a musician?
I think it's a very honest reflection of all my musical experiences. You know, I grew up in a very close-knit Armenian household. I don't think my father had a single recording that wasn't Armenian music. So that's all I heard growing up. Of course, going to weddings, churches, parties, everything was Armenian music. So that's very much deep within my DNA. But then growing up, I had a very kind of Western classical education. At one point, I was very obsessed with the music of Bach. So there's a lot of counterpoint, and even going back before Bach, a lot of medieval polyphonic vocal writing was something I was really obsessed with for a while. But being a composer, you know, and writing new classical music, I was also very influenced by a lot of the contemporary minimalists. People like Philip Glass, Steve Reich. That was kind of the music I was drawn to growing up. So the music that I'm doing now for the Naghash Ensemble, I feel is a very genuine outgrowth of all those influences. You know, when you try to do a fusion of things, it's usually horrible. It's like Armenian flavored jazz. You take some with this and combine it with that. Remember those recordings of like monks chanting with like disco beats? I hate those kind of artificial fusions. I do believe that this music is not, it doesn't have that artifice, I think. I think it's just a genuine reflection of all those influences. It sounds very Armenian, but it is also new classical. It sits squarely in between those two genres.
As a cutting-edge jazz improviser, a performing musician, where do you see yourself with the Naghash Ensemble?
Well, my work with the Naghash Ensemble is principally as composer. I mean, because most of the music is notated. That gives birth to a totally different type of thing than what you would do when you improvise. You know, I love to improvise, but if you improvise, you're going to come to a different place than when you notate things. I love them both, but you get very, very different materials when you do it. The reason I say I'm the composer for the Naghash Ensemble is because everything is notated. That gives you a tremendous amount of time to reflect upon what you've done and to make it exactly what you wanted to do. A totally different spirit than you would take when you do an improvisation. You get to meticulously work out all the counterpoint, you know, meticulously work out the arrangements, the orchestration, all those things. So my role with the Naghash Ensemble is as the composer.
How did you discover 15th century priest Mkrtich Naghash?
Oh boy, once I had the idea of what I wanted to do, I knew the sounds I wanted to use, I knew it was going to involve Cosmic Bagdasarian's voice, this very, very beautiful voice, incredibly unique voice from Armenia. I wanted to work with that voice. I knew the sonic architecture of what I wanted to do. I knew the instruments I wanted to use. I knew the energy it had to have. But of course, if you're doing vocal music, right, something for singers, the texts are everything. I had to find just the right texts. And it took me forever. It literally took me another 3 years before I could start writing the actual music, before I found the right text. Because I read everything. I read Naghash. Everyone said, oh, you should read Krikor Naghash, which of course is beautiful, but it wasn't right. And then I read contemporary stuff, and I thought about studying Charans for a while, and all sorts of different Armenian poets. And then I finally came across this tiny fragment of this poet, this medieval Armenian poet, Mkrtich Naghash. Very few people know who he is. I found it, and there's this 3-volume set of the heritage of Armenian literature. Each volume is like this big. I started like going through all of it. And in the middle of volume 2 is just this one fragment of poem by this Mkrtich Naghash. And he wrote so beautifully about the plight of the Garib. Garib is an Arabic word, but was used by Armenians, was used by everybody for a wanderer, exile, somebody without a homeland. Obviously, this is something very important to Armenians. And it was, the words were so beautiful, and the music of the words, because it's written in Middle Armenian, not Krapar, not contemporary Armenian, but this kind of still a very, very different sound. Everything was perfect rhyming quatrains, so it had an inherent musicality. In fact, it's speculated that the text was probably sung in its day. Now, we don't know what that music sounded like, but it already had this very kind of rhythmic, very flowing vitality to it. So when I discovered that, I just felt like I was home. It was what I needed to match this sound that I was hearing in my head. After that, it was easy. Well, not so easy, but...
How do you describe the music of the Naghash Ensemble? What is the genre?
A question you get asked because you have to have an answer for marketing purposes. It's a big question. When I first put the ensemble together, I've always been a touring musician. It's like, okay, now where are we going to play? Are we going to play classical music halls? Are we going to play clubs? Are we going to play like world music festivals? And the truth is, we now play all those things because it really sits squarely in between what they would call new classical music, because it is somewhat formal, you know, but it is very Armenian sounding, but it does have this kind of energy, like you'd have at a rock concert or something like that. So I would say probably like 3/4 of the places we play are classical music venues that are willing to think outside the box. And then maybe a big handful of world music festivals or world music presenters. World music is that way it could be anything. We happen to represent Armenia in most cases. But we've played at recently we played at something called Transmusicale. Transmusicale is France's biggest alternative rock festival. Actually, it's Europe's biggest festival, right? It was Europe's biggest festival. This man saw us play at the Rouen Opera House. He saw us do one of our normal concerts. He came up, oh, you must come play my festival. It's like, oh, okay. And he told me, described the festival. And I went home and I Googled it, and I see it's all like rappers and DJs and electronica and all this stuff. I called him, you sure this is what? No, it will be perfect, it will be perfect. It was massive. It was something like 8,000 people, all standing, all inebriated, but they were dead silent when we played. It was really kind of an amazing thing. And they called us the UFO of Transmusicale because it was just so weird and so different from anything, but they had us headline the festival. It was kind of one of our most interesting shows. The point being, yes, we can even play a rock festival, and we have.
Can you inform us about your concert in Montreal in 2020?
I'm really excited about the concert we're playing in Montreal. The beautiful Salle Bourget. I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. I hear it's a fantastic hall acoustically. It seems to be a perfect environment for us. It's not that big, but it seems like it's going to be just right. Plus, it'll be our debut in Canada. First time in North America. So I'm really looking forward to that show.